Well, PRASA investigations cost 145 million rand over 2 years. Are we going to see lots of money being thrown at the problem at Transnet as well, as the new board, under the leadership of its chairman, Popo Molefe, tries to get to the bottom of whether or not a turnaround, as suggested by the chief executive, Siyabonga Gawa, is in fact in place already at Transnet. Certainly the filling of vacant executive posts, dealing decisively with executives implicated in state capture or corruption at Transnet, are some of the matters that the new board will have to tackle. I'm taking stock with the interim chair, soon to be confirmed, no doubt, Popo Molefe. Where do you start? You go in and day one, you've got your documents, you've got your reports. But as we know in South Africa in the last 3 or 4 years, not every report that has been published by an ostensibly credible body has actually been credible at all. How do you know what to believe and who to believe and when to believe them?
Well, Bruce, but can I come back to that question? You made this statement, which, if left hanging like that, would create some wrong perception. 145 million spent on PRASA investigations.
Yes.
We're going to come back
over 2 years, 2015, 2016.
Yeah, because we must look at that against the billions involved and the destruction of records by management who were trying to hide the truth from us. We will come back to that. How do I know if it is true or not true? I think our experience at PRASA has been that you need robust and experienced investigators, forensic investigators, to establish the truth. People will always try to mislead and take chances. I think they might succeed in some ways, but in the long term and in the long run, we will know the truth. Because it's not just the truth because we wish that it be the truth. We have an understanding what is good corporate governance. We have a fair understanding of the laws of our country and the requirement of prudent management of the resources of the taxpayer. So I'm sure we'll find a way of dealing with it. I mean, you've just spoken about Luizona, a very experienced man who's been with the bank for 30 years. I mean, with those sorts of people in the team, we should be able to get to the bottom of
he can spot a hole. He can spot a hole in a balance sheet from 100 meters. I'm told this. Okay, so the 145 million rand which you spent, and I think there was some criticism of the amount of money spent, but that's as a result of the failure of state organs of state, the Hawks and the police, to have the investigative capacity to do this. You've had to outsource that sort of investigation to get a result. Still, if you manage to find evidence of wrongdoing, one of the great frustrations amongst many South Africans is there's no follow-through. Yes, we find out what went wrong, but will you pursue prosecutions of people who are found to have ripped off Transnet and ripped off taxpayers?
Well, are you saying Transnet or
Transnet? I'm talking about Transnet now. We're talking about PRASA too, if you like.
Well, we're obliged. Remember, there's PRECA.
Yeah.
Prevention and Combating of Corrupt Activities Act. To the extent that we become aware of that, we report, and we must make sure that there's follow-through on those matters. So we will deal with those matters.
Provided you've got the time to do so, of course. Pravin Gordhan is not likely to stay on as Public Enterprises Minister beyond the next election, whenever that happens. Let's assume it's April next year. Assuming you have the political backing, of course, for this. We've seen how a failure of political support has hamstrung so many state-owned enterprise boards in the past.
The good thing about this current period, which it's called the New Dawn, is that you've got a president who's committed to rooting out corruption. And he's not just making pronouncements, he acts. He doesn't need to steal anybody's money to stay in office, so he's got no interest in allowing corruption to continue. So whether Pravin is there or I am there, to the extent that corruption and criminal transgressions have been identified, I'm sure they will be followed by the government. I think we have a different mood prevailing now in the country and in government. In the previous period, the problem was right at the top and people were afraid to act.
Trevor Manuel this week has described the Zuma era as disastrous for South Africa. It's the Thabo Makgoba lecture that he gave in Cape Town this week. Would you agree with him? Would you be as strong as that the Jacob Zuma era was disastrous?
I agree with him. And 7 years ago, I met with President Zuma out of concern of what I was seeing happening in the ANC and the government. Unfortunately, he then said to me I should no longer convene those meetings. He would convene them, and it was the last time we met. Because one of the things I raised in that meeting was that it was wrong for members of the ANC to be treated like voting cattle. That we go to Polokwane, they get given slates, they are told to tick names as if they don't know who their leaders are in the organization. And the result was a disastrous one, where we had public representatives and leaders in the organization who did not enjoy the respect of the millions of our people who were persuaded to consider the ANC as the guardian of their interest, the leader in society, and a beacon of hope for our people. So now we have a different mood prevailing, and I'm satisfied that we will deal with these issues. But another advantage we have, Bruce, is that the civil society is reviving itself, consolidating its position, and then I'm sure that if those in political office or in organs of state don't want to do their job, civil society will keep a watchful eye on them and will compel them to act on these matters, as has been the case with the application I made to the court compelling the Hawks to do their job. I was removed from office. Civil society pursued that matter.
I mean, Alta have been absolutely critical in this process. You might not like absolutely everything they do and some of the people who are part of Alta, for example, but you've got to applaud the work that they're doing in terms of keeping South Africa more honest than it would have been without Alta.
Yes, but we must also think of Unite Behind, an organization in the Western Cape of various civil society groups and NGOs and the veterans of the United Democratic Front. It has been doing a sterling job to try and get the metro rail back on the rails and to serve our people. Those and, you know, Freedom Under Law and many other organizations are playing a very critical role. Of course, your people also, the Fourth Estate, has been critical in this regard, and the independent judiciary has been a blessing to this country.
How close did we come, in your view, as a person with decades of experience in politics, decades of experience in the ANC? How close did we come to disaster?
Look, very, very close. I mean, we were on the precipice.
It was 160 votes. It was 160 votes.
We were just about to collapse. Yeah. I mean, I sit here in front of you. Realistically, what is still surviving are the following institutions: the media, independent media, the judiciary, and the Reserve Bank. Everyone else of our institutions were being destroyed systematically, and the damage is huge.
The damage is huge. Is it unfixable?
Well, do we have a choice, Bruce? We don't have a choice. Therefore, it has to be fixable. It will be fixable, because we would be prophets of doom if we would say to South Africans we can't fix the country. Why must they believe in us? Why must they believe in their own country? So we've got to keep saying it is fixable. In the days of the struggle for freedom, when some people believed that the monolith of the apartheid institutions and structure and government was invincible, we believed that freedom will come, and it will come in our lifetime. And indeed, it came in the lifetime of Nelson Mandela as well. So in this instance, too, we are confident and we're optimistic that we will fix these institutions. Popo Molefe, it will take long, but we've got to work on it. And it is the message we must convey to the many young South Africans who are talented, who have continued to uphold the values that we shared with them in the days of the struggle for freedom.
That is becoming increasingly brittle. And that one of the things that was destroyed over the last 10 years was faith and belief that the system can work for everybody. Have we left it too late for that? You face big political opposition from both your left and your right as the ANC in that particular struggle. Young people feeling massively disillusioned. Unemployment rates between 16 to 35-year-olds of over 50%.
It's precisely because of this disillusion amongst young people that it is imperative for us to work and fix the mess that has been created before and after we took office, because that's what is going to restore confidence. We've got to build your entities like Transnet as engines that will drive economic growth, create jobs for these young people, mentor them, develop their skills, and make sure that we have an army of experts prepared to run this country beyond the current generation.
Popo Molefe is my guest. He is the new chairman of Transnet. More with him after the break as we wrap up this week's edition of Taking Stock.